It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Friday, January 17th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content. I think the Flyers responded really well to the Poehling injury.
Yeah, I would say so.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade. I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 19 years, Russ Cohen. And to keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on all your favorite socials. And of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, you are coming to us from Michigan, where you attended the All-American Prospects game. We're going to talk about that later in the show, as well as preview the game against the Devils. But man, that Islanders game, it could have gone much further south than it did. And I, for one, I'm grateful that the Flyers really found a way between the first and second period to calm things down and really had one of the best second periods they've had all season long, scoring 3 goals.
Yeah, they scored 3 consecutive goals. That was a good answer back. That Poehling hit, that definitely was a head hit. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I know Islander fans are gonna say otherwise, but I watched it, and that was my take on it. And then I saw you know, pictures of it after, and the pictures weren't as decisive as the video. The video was pretty decisive, but yeah, I mean, Couturier gets on the board, Frost for all the Frost haters, and it's and they're growing, it seems, but it was really good answer back that way in that period, especially the second period, like you said.
Yeah, I think so. And, that hit was absolutely a headshot. I agree. And, you know, what was really annoying to me, once again, because I have to watch these games with the Islanders broadcast since I live in the New York broadcast area, and they were not having it. And they were claiming that the Flyers were trying to go after Siplikov in an inappropriate manner, and they did not acknowledge the penalty, the slash on Travis Konechny that basically led to that power play goal in the first period for the Islanders. And it's so infuriating sometimes where you're just like, come on, can we even try here to have
Yeah,
some balance?
objectivity is a great thing when it's used.
Absolutely. Speaking of Travis Konechny, I think given everything, he had a really tremendous game. He went down in that awkward collision against the boards earlier in the game. He had to deal with that slash, and he had 3 assists in this game. He was all over the ice. Great feed to Noah Cates for the empty net goal at the end. I just thought, given everything, he's the guy that always steps up in these situations, and he takes it.
Yeah, he's the one you have to look to in these kinds of games, and so, yeah, it was a big deal. I mean, the Islanders make it though, and, that's a little scary considering the way it
Right.
was, and that's this year's Flyers team. There's just gonna be these kinds of games, but they did pull it out.
They did. Joel Farabee came back into the lineup
Yeah.
for this game, and he said pregame that he wanted to be a little more aggressive and not hold back, that he felt like he had been too conservative in some of his previous games, and
So we
then
had
even
that early
this.
penalty. That's not great.
Well, but I think he meant more risk taking
No,
offensively.
I get it, but it did turn into that too.
It did, but I think overall he had a good game. I wouldn't say it's the greatest game he ever had, but it was a
Yeah,
really good return game for him, I thought. 2 assists. He had great vision on the
yeah.
feed to Coots for that goal. Great pass to York just after that power play expired. I just thought he was so smart. He had a little delay on that pass, and that completely fooled the Islanders defensively. And York had a really nice open shot available to him and buried it. And I just thought, he had some really good chances of his own too, and like I said, not the best game he's ever had, but a really good one.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that York was able to bury a shot because he has struggled at times with that. But yeah,
Mhm.
he's got terrific passing touch, and when he really is on his game, he could do those things.
Yeah, you talked about Morgan Frost, 7 scoring chances in this game, 5 on net. Really fun move earlier in the game that didn't go, but he was just like all in all game, and it was
Yeah,
fun to watch him. He is one of the players that had to step up at the dot a little bit with Paling out. So he was 10 and 6 at the dot, 62.5%. That is really good.
yeah. I mean, we've talked about it. He has stepped up in the dot all year, really, and again, if people want to just worry about his turn, like the offense certainly far outweighs the turnovers, and this offense has been good now for a
Mhm.
while. But again, end of the year, whenever he gets 45 points, 48 points, it'll be a bad year, Rachel. That's just the way it goes for Morgan Frost.
I don't think so this time around. I really don't.
I The perception seems to be that I'll be shocked if people say he has a good year. Even if he gets 55 points, I'd be shocked.
Well, hopefully you're wrong and I am
I
right
hope I'm wrong too.
at the end of the day. Sean Couturier, you mentioned he scored a goal and an assist. He struggled at the dot a little bit, 6 out of 13, but only like a little over 11 minutes of time on ice. That's kind of what he's been doing recently. Again,
Yeah.
with him on the fourth line, which we talk about overplaying him. I think they're underplaying him just a little bit, but there was also some special team situations, so that probably has a lot to do with it as well, just
It
in terms
does.
of the timing of his
But they
attention.
know that they've overplayed him recently, and I guess this is their way of making up for it without taking him out of the lineup, and they can't take him out of the lineup because they don't have enough forwards, and they don't have enough forwards because they have 3 goalies. But anyhow, we move on.
Yeah, I think, the the thing for me about the 3rd period of this game is that obviously the beginning of it was pretty bad. They gave up the
Mhm.
quick goal. The power play looked like one of the worst they've had all season long. Um, the Isles had like multiple chances shorthanded, not just one, but multiple.
Yeah.
But then they score almost immediately after the power play expired. And luckily that kind of negated all of that, and they turned it around for the most of the rest of the period at that point, but, like, they were hunkered down for, like, 49 seconds of the 6 on 5 on a delayed penalty in the 3rd, and I thought, they could have handled it better. I think they had a little bit of a problem clearing the puck on that, and when they had the 6 on 4 when the Islanders scored to make it within 1, I think, that was, like, the weird deflection goal.
Yeah, but they still let 3 guys set up in the crease. You can't
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah. That's the thing, is, like, I think, overall, this is a good win for the team, but I think
Mhm.
those are the kinds of little things that they can look at and try and learn from,
Yeah,
ultimately.
they definitely could learn from him, and, ultimately, they did get the win, so, yeah, not gonna be too hard, but it's the clearing of the crease, that's been a thing for a while now.
Yeah, I also wanna talk about Garnet Hathaway because I feel like he has stepped up in the way that we want him to as
Mhm.
of late. Like, he's putting some points on the board
Yep.
recently and, just getting those additional goals that the Flyers need to either put them over the top or just be padding, in the grand scheme of things. And, he scored in that Ducks game. And he scored a key goal in this game that was shorthanded. It was a great 2-on-1, play for the Flyers, and he really, I think, stepped up after Paling went out as well to try and handle, the situation and, didn't really get into a fight, but really was physical with Siplikov for most of the rest of the game, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, and, again, it turned out to be a pretty good effort. There's things to clean up, no question about it, and, you move on to the next one, and we'll talk about that one soon.
That is an excellent transition to the next segment. We will do that coming up next. From big upsets to game winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same game parlays, and so much more. And on the hockey side, you can even bet on the Four Nations tournament coming up on all the individual games, plus who will win the tournament. Just visit fanduel.com to join today. Get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's fanduel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. On Monday, we are going to recap the Devils game that we are about to talk to you about. We'll have our nemesis of the week and so much more. This is once again the first of four meetings with the New Jersey Devils this season. We
Crazy.
just played our first game against the New York Islanders. Now we head to Newark, and the Devils are second in the Metro right now, very solidly in that playoff spot. Before last night's loss to the Toronto Maple Leafs in overtime. They were, 2 points above Carolina and 6 points behind the Caps, who have 2 games in hand. So everybody around them has games in hand. So it feels
Right.
like they're going to just like stay in that two slot for the
It
time
does.
being.
I mean, the Caps could be running away with the division, which is crazy in and of itself.
Absolutely crazy. I know. Ovi gets another goal. It's an
Yep.
OT winner. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
It's getting ridiculous in the best way
Oh,
possible.
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so you look at their previous games and they're playing a lot of overtime
They
games
are.
right now. That's their fourth game in a row that went to extra time. And that's some additional wear and tear, getting
Oh, yeah.
tired. I think that's really the big story with them recently is just all these overtime games.
Yeah, I mean, they're playing some good teams. I mean, the Leafs are a team that's dangerous as heck in overtime. So, I mean, that's you can understand that one, but they're getting pretty good goaltending. Like Markstrom's a good goalie. I don't know if they'll face Markstrom, probably will. And that's going to be they're going to have to be up to the task for that one.
Yeah, Jack Hughes opened the scoring against Toronto. Nico Hischier had 2 in that one, and those are guys that are obviously, like, big names on the list of
Heishier has turned
players.
into a real star in this league.
Yeah.
He really has. He's terrific.
Yeah, so those are 2 players that the Flyers are absolutely gonna have to figure
Oh, yeah.
out how to handle, and I think that's really the challenge here, right, with the Devils is that they are just such a great team up and down the lineup, and the Flyers have to figure out a way with all of their lines how to match up against that
Right.
and play that kind of defense that they like to play.
And we don't know if Paling will be in next game or if it's gonna be like,
Yeah.
Licksell in and then Scott Lawton in center. Like, we just that
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 would
could
be my
happen.
supposition
Right.
about what's gonna happen is that Lixell will come back in and Lawton will go to center. I just feel like that's the only
Yeah.
option right now and the one
Yeah.
that Hurts most likely would go with.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I think the Flyers could keep up with the Devils, like, face-off wise on the top 6. Speed-wise, they can't. Speed-wise,
Right.
they're gonna have a problem,
That's
and
the
Paling is one of
difference.
their faster guys, so that would be a shame if he can't play.
Right. So, we'll see what happens with that. But I think, the thing with the Devils to me, you can look at all of their stats. They've, the third highest scoring percentage for at 5-on-5, the second highest expected goals for percentage at 5-on-5, the third highest power play, right?
Yep.
And so excellent team across the board. So like where's the weakness here? And it's funny because I just mentioned they have played 4 games that went to overtime or a shootout in a row. Overtime is the weakness here. In
Right.
close games, they are beatable. They are
Right.
29th in the NHL when a game is decided in overtime. Like they're 2-4 for the
Yeah.
season on it. Actually 2-5 now. That 2-4 was before the Leafs
Yeah, and I
game.
think they were
So
up 2-1 or 2-0 against the Leafs too, so,
right.
so if they have a lead, you know that you can come back in the game, and that does help you as an opposing team to know that.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like if it's a close game, the Devils are beatable. It's the
Right.
when you let them run away with it, it
Right. Yeah, if they
is the
score like
problem.
3 goals early, then, then it's problematic. I mean, I'm assuming that Urson's gonna be in this one too.
I would assume so as well. I think, they're not gonna split until the back-to-back next week.
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, the Flyers are much better at overtime and shootout
Yeah.
than the Devils are, which is, I think, the saving grace here, in the grand scheme of things. It is always tough to go up to Newark, and perform well there. I know the Flyers have
During the
struggled with that
day
some.
too, on the weekend, that's not the Flyers'
Yeah.
best moments.
It is not. I think the other thing too is that, we saw the Flyers have like a real mixed bag with the power play against the Islanders. I think that, you know, they had one power play that I thought was excellent, and the others were like, one was scary, and then the other one was, so it's
Yeah.
like, I feel like, the fact that the Devils are so good on the power play themselves, but also pretty good on the penalty kill
They
as
are. They
well.
have some skill guys in key positions, so special teams wise, that's where you really do have to watch it.
Yeah, I think so. They have had some injuries and illnesses, on their lineup. Whatever's going around with
Yeah.
everybody is going around. Obviously, with hockey players, they're more likely to pass it along, I think, given
Yes.
the play. But so everybody's sick, but they've adjusted. That's the thing, is they've gotten through it. So I think that, we'll see what the lineup turns out to be there, but it should be a pretty solid one for the Devils.
It will be, and Sheldon Keefe just, has done a good job this year. He is a good
Hmm.
coach. I mean, for people that were kind of wondering, is this guy really a good coach? He's a good coach.
Yeah, and I thought he got a decent welcome in Toronto.
He
I
did.
think they were very nice to him, and that was good to see.
Yeah.
Um, I think the other kind of side story going on with them right now is Simon Nemeth,
Hmm.
who is their prospect, who we talked about, during his
Countless
draft
times.
year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, quite a bit. And he got sent down to Utica earlier this season. And we know from covering the Phantoms that Utica is a pretty terrible team.
Yes.
And I think that plus the frustration of being sent down has led to some consternation there. And there are rumors that he's not happy and is going to ask for a trade. He says that's not the case. He's like, it's too soon to ask for a trade, is
But that doesn't mean
what
he
I
won't.
believe he said.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that is very interesting,
Yeah,
especially
sure. I mean, if Nemec goes
given
on the
everything.
market, I mean, teams are going to be interested. A lot of them.
Yeah. So I think that's not, with the current Devils team right now,
Right.
an issue, but it's just something hanging around in the background that I thought was interesting. And I'm sure it's frustrating for him to try and be a top prospect and prove himself when the team around him is pretty bad in the grand
True.
scheme of
No, and
things.
it doesn't make it easy. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, afternoon games on Saturday on the road are not the Flyers' forte, but
No.
I think if they can sort of take the momentum from this Islanders win into Newark and have a positive game, I do believe they have it within them to win this one. And I certainly hope they do, for just, for my own personal benefit, in addition to the
Yeah,
Flyers.
yeah, yeah. I get it.
All right. Well, like we said, Russ is in Michigan and went to the All American Prospects game. So we're going to check in with him on that and talk about the playoff race and the week ahead coming up next. All right, Russ. So the All American Prospects game is held in Michigan at the development program, like USA Hockey Training Center,
Yeah.
and it's draft eligible prospects,
Hmm.
all American players that they split into two different teams.
43 players, I think it was.
Yeah. So, like, what did you see in this game? Were there any standouts? Any surprises there?
Well, I saw a lot of scouts. They had sold 220 scout tickets, and that's not only
Oh my
NHL.
God.
Because you remember, it's not just NHL now, because
Mm,
colleges are more interested than ever, and
Mhm.
probably some CHL too, because some guys can transfer now, so the
Yeah.
CHL's been getting some players from the USHL. So yeah, Will Moore is one of that I spoke to. He was on the blue team, big kid. He had that first goal, a deflection goal, really nice. Uh,
Yeah.
really talented guy. He's a guy that if you get him, you can build muscle on that body of his, and I think he's 6'3", so he's a little bit lanky, and that's something where it's like, yeah, you know what, this guy could really be something in 3-4 years. So I think he did himself some favors. Riker Lee got the game winner. He's pretty good. I don't know if he's more than a second rounder right now, maybe a third rounder, but probably a second, late second. Um, Charlie Trethaway did really good for Team White on defense. He in all situations, like, he has a good shot. He really good stick. He's a guy that preseason there was a lot of buzz about. He is pretty high on my list, and then I think he fell off a little bit. But I think this game reminded people that he is that good. Going back to blue, I think it's Jack Loria, I think if I'm pronouncing it correctly, the defenseman. He had a really good game. He's going to South Dakota. Boy, the way he plays defense, skates, passes, that not South Dakota, North Dakota. Sorry. They're just a factory there. And so, yeah,
Right.
that's another good player to watch. Um, Other than that, there were some other guys that did play well. Uh, there were some pretty good defensemen there for sure. I mean, I think Murtagh showed well. He just didn't get to score. Jack Murtagh. He's
Right.
a pretty high thought of prospect as well. So I think overall there was almost a fight in the game. Jackson Crowder removed and I forget the other player's number. As a scout, sometimes you'll forget the number and the name. The number 6 for the blue team. Uh, he removed his helmet and he just
Oh, you can't
lost it.
do that.
He lost it, and so Crowder actually
Yeah.
got kicked out of the game for that. But
Wow.
yeah, 6 lost it, and that's, something where it was like, wow, he was really heated. Let's see. I found my sheet, so if I could pull him up quick. Maceo Phillips. He really was not happy. That was a very upset guy. And so it's Sam Lorilla. Sorry, I used the wrong first name. So, but he getting back to that fight that almost happened, that was pretty exciting. And,
Mhm.
there's some other players. I did like the mask for Patrick Quinlan, who was from,
Yes.
the Philly area, Kennett Square. So, like, right where the park is. So that's, he's a local
He had a
kid. So,
Liberty Bell on his
yeah.
mask, which I liked.
Yeah, that you noticed that even before I did because you saw on TV. I like what Cole McKinney did too for the white team. I just posted something about him on Sportsology, so people can go read that. And yeah, it was a good game. There, I would say 3 or 4 players really moved up the charts. Caden Harrington was also for the white team. He was on defense. I spoke to him post game. He did really well for himself. He's a guy that's going to University of Vermont, and I did ask him a very hard question: is it possible to live in Vermont and not like Ben and Jerry's? And he said it is not possible. Like, definitively, quickly, he said it's not possible. So that
That's
was a good
funny.
answer. And I did actually ask him who's the best player to ever play at Vermont, and he didn't say John Leclerc, but he did say Martin St. Louis, and that's a pretty good answer.
Alright, that is fair. That is a fair answer,
And
I
my
will give
cousins
him.
went there. I have 2 cousins that went there, met there, and got married. So that's kind of nice
Oh,
too.
that's a really good story as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, I think, looking at especially the goaltending
Mhm.
here, with Trey Augustine like finally aging out, like there's sort of a question about the future of the young American goalies. And like there hasn't been anybody to kind of take the reins on that front. Like, was there any of these goalies that stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I thought Slavic did pretty good. He was number one. He for the white team. He had some really good saves. I thought he had some quick covers. He was okay. Bjorn Bronis has a little bit of extra game, I think, and he's 6'2". Slavic, unfortunately, is only 5'10", so that's something that's gonna probably prevent
Yeah.
him from. But he just, I got to give him credit. He had a pretty good game. But
Sure.
Bronis has the measurables, and I thought he did well. I thought that he got caught leaning maybe once, but he didn't give up a goal for that. But he was a guy that they got down and out, but because he's so big, he was able to make the saves like Fedotov does. Some of those bigger
Right.
guys can get down and out and still get away with it. There's a little something there. We'll see if that translates. But they're not like loaded. Like a lot of times with these games, you would see like three really good U.S. goalies. These guys are still developing, and it's
Yeah.
not like it was.
Yeah, in the parts of it that I was able to see, that was one thing that I was noticing. I was like,
Yeah.
none of these guys are like number one goaltender candidates to me, but they do have plenty of time and they are young children, so I will give them that grace and
Sure.
that
I will
time.
tell you something that's coming up there though at USA Hockey Arena that's going to be a big deal. One of the front office people from Muskegon is from New Jersey and actually
Hmm.
from West Windsor. And so he said he got 7 requests for a Jack Hughes bobblehead from his friends in New Jersey. So that's going to be a hot item, I feel. And there's probably going to be a lot of people on eBay, people from New Jersey on eBay trying to get the Jack Hughes bobblehead.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah,
All right, so looking at the playoff race where we stand now, I think you know, it's still pretty difficult for the Flyers, I think, where they are right now to climb back into it. I think it's partially because a lot of these other teams just have games in hand on the Flyers at the moment. And we kind of really need to see it at a more even level. Like the three teams above the Flyers at this point all have 2 games in hand on them. And Columbus has 1 game in hand, and they're in the first wild card spot at the moment. They won yet another game against the Sharks. So,
yeah, they're
another
for
two
real.
points for them. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
That's 6 in a row for them.
yeah, I think they're for real. Um, And even though Detroit's on a heater, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. But what they are going to do is make it hard for a team like the Flyers to try and leapfrog other teams, because
Yeah.
Detroit right now has stayed hot, and Ottawa has played really well, even without Allmark, and Montreal's played well. I mean, really, really well. They're
Right.
eight
So,
1-1 in their last 10. So it's like you're right. It's not like the Flyers are playing bad hockey. It's just you got 2 or 3 red hot teams, and then teams above them it's really hard. Like, this is a bad math equation.
yeah, and it's like you try and say, "Oh, that's why you need to rack up these points earlier in the season because you get to this point and all
Yes.
of these sorts of things happen." But you're right. The Red Wings are 8-2 in their last 10. They won over Florida last night, and you can say, "Well, the Flyers won over Florida too." So, but I think like
Right, but they're
Florida's
still
having their
behind
own
them.
issues. They're
They are.
still behind them, right? So I think that first off, this stadium series game between Columbus and Detroit suddenly got very interesting, in
Oh,
my
yeah, it's gonna
opinion.
be something for sure. And those
Yeah,
jerseys were interesting. I thought the football helmet for Detroit was kinda cool.
yeah, yeah. I think they each had their own interesting little elements.
Yeah.
Like you're right about the Detroit football style
Yeah, because the
helmet.
jersey was kinda bland, but the football helmet caught my eye.
Mhm. Right, and then the Blue Jackets with like the way they illustrated the cannon I thought was really
Yes.
interesting, and the Ohio outline around the sea, kinda like they did the Keystone around the
Yeah, I don't know
sea
if they're
for
gonna be able to shoot the cannon in that stadium, in an outdoor stadium. I don't think so.
no, no, I hope not,
They might
but, and
simulate
it
it though, you know what I mean? Like, they might just have a
yeah,
recording of it.
yeah, yeah, we'll see what happens there, but yeah, I think, like, the only good news for the well, not the only good news, but the one interesting bit of good news for the Flyers is that the New York Rangers continue to be in a
They're
tailspin.
a hot mess,
Like,
yeah.
they're just a hot mess, and the Pens, like, they'll get back into it for a second, but then it all falls
Yeah,
apart
they're not
again,
for
and
they're gonna have a hard time even crawling back into it.
Right. So I really honestly believe that it's just the teams above them right now that
Yeah,
are the issue
I
for
agree.
the Flyers right now.
And the
And,
problem's gonna be as the season gets later, they're not gonna play on much. Like we said, Columbus, they're only gonna play once. I don't know, what do they have? 1 or 2 left against Boston, who's right behind Columbus. Detroit,
right. Well,
d go ahead.
yeah. So speaking of Detroit, that's one of the teams that the Flyers play next week. So
Correct.
it's the Red Wings, the Rangers, and the Islanders again. And so that that Islanders game, given what just happened, like it could
It's
get
gonna be
pretty ugly.
contentious. And
It's
and
going to
the
be very
Detroit's a must
contentious.
win. Like, if you've had designs on the playoffs, it's a must win, like the
Yep.
last Columbus one was a must win.
Absolutely must win, and the Islanders game is gonna be on the second half of a back-to-back
Mm,
where they'll be at Madison Square Garden the night before, so that is gonna take a lot out of them.
sure.
So that back-to-back is gonna be a gauntlet for
It
sure.
will be. Luckily, they don't have to travel far, but what's gonna happen in game is gonna be the tough
Mhm.
part, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So lots to talk about next week, and we will be here to do it. And we will recap the game against the Devils on Monday, as well as name our nemesis of the week. Might be related to some of that stuff we were just
Could
talking about
be.
in the playoff
Could be about
race.
my drive home, who knows?
As a reminder, we always want to hear from you, though. You can send in your mailbag questions or Flyers thoughts on any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ, I'm at Sportsology on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert. Get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great weekend, everyone.